don't know why I'm standing here, because actually we're going to get Lucy Salonch up on stage to talk about Transgender.
Thanks, Margaret. Before I get into talking about everything, there's a whole people that I just want to take a moment to thank for this event taking place. Of course, we have Thara and Brett from Sarah. We have Miriam, Anna, and Donna from TransFem, and Morgan from Transmask speaking up here before. We have Freya and the team here at Prompt, and we have the strength of our communities. This event is, I don't need to tell you how it feels, right? But this event, things like today, only happen because despite everything that gets difficult, we're able to stand alongside each other and we're able to come together. So I just want to thank everyone in this room for doing that, for making the time to be here today, for making all the time you do to connect with our communities, to connect with yourself, to take those moments, as Josie was saying, to do what you need to look after yourself and keep yourself here, because it's difficult, but standing up here, seeing how many people are in this room, it's a beautiful feeling. There's probably two little bits I want to speak to today. One, as one of the co-founders, and then co-founders again, of TransFem, and then a bit more generally as well. So TransFem as a community group has been running for just over 3 years now, and we've been lucky enough to connect with over 600 trans and gender diverse people in just that short time. And I know that for Transmask in their 9 or 10 years now, it's already over 1,000 people that they've connected with in the community. So we're lucky enough again to have frequent touch points with our community members to recognize our strength, to come together to support each other, and ultimately that all happens because of volunteers. It happens because of the people who are speaking up here earlier today, the people who show up our groups every fortnight, the people who are online getting involved, talking to each other and looking after each other. And I think this is just making me really reflect on that. Like, it's, as I said, I've been doing this just TransFem for a bit over 3 years. I've been doing work in the community since I was 17, right? And sometimes it's easy to, I think, forget how fortunate it is to have so many lovely people here. And when it comes to TransFem, talking about the importance of community spaces, I've been doing that in an indirect way the rest of this conversation already. But when I think about it, a couple of years ago, we had a bit of a chat around like, hey, if what does our community need? What does being trans mean to us? And so often things we were hearing were honestly really simple, right? So often these things that turn into huge asks are really just asking for our rights to be respected and enacted the same way anyone else's are. And I'm just going around in circles. Again, I'm just glad that we have moments like today. I've been doing a lot of thinking, taking off whatever that was in an attempt of speech about TransFem. Personally, I've been thinking a lot over the past, particularly 14 days, 16, around what hope in community means and what hope in activism means, and how we stay in these spaces in what are difficult times, what are unfortunately likely to continue being difficult times. And again, what a surprise it is community, but it's more than that, right? Part of maintaining hope in our communities, to me, is about making sure that we're giving ourselves the same or more than we do give our communities, in the sense of making sure that we're not just reaching out to check on others, but making sure we're putting others first to ourselves. 25, so young, technically, kinda. And I know that, when I grew up, probably from the age of like 12 or 13, I had to start learning how to do peer support, not by choice, but because that's in these communities, so many of us are struggling, that's what you end up needing to do, right? You need to know how to tell others to look after themselves. You need to know the different things that someone can do to self-soothe, to try to regulate and all of that. And it's still so difficult for, I think, a lot of us to apply those to ourselves. So I think it's maintaining hope in community is maintaining hope to me when I think about everything ahead. It's keeping in connection with community, but remembering that you are community, right? That community isn't just the people you're with, that it is collective, it is mutual. That needs to go both ways. And that means that you need to respect community, you need to give yourself the same love, the same kindness that you give to everyone else in our community. And I know that you're great at doing that, because again, you've made the time to be here. You've sat through what have been some really difficult, beautiful but difficult conversations. So I know that you're capable of that. So I just want to encourage everyone to do that. I think we'll leave that there.
I believe Lucy was going to have something to say, but I beat her to it, so I don't know. She's coming up, she's stepping back. Okay, we're good, we're going. My list is also rapidly growing. Turns out an open mic night at a trans event is very popular. Fun. Anyway, if you haven't reached me already, try harder.
Hey everyone, again, had more thoughts come to mind and just something else I felt was worth sharing. So, when Miriam was kind of talking about the significance of Transgender Remembrance, you might have noticed that she began by talking about how it was originally about murders and lives lost to violence, and over time, and I think particularly as well in our national context, we've kind of recognized that that includes suicide as well, and that is something which we also need to be talking about and recognizing today. And I think some people might raise their eyebrows at that. There are some people who kind of be going like, hey, these are, there are some core differences in what happens in here. But especially, being involved in SARA, this being partially a SARA event, I've been thinking a lot around how, and again, it came to mind after Chrissy's speech, around how what we think about as force, what we think about as violence, tends to unfortunately be probably more limited than the reality. So when we're thinking about it, we tend to think of individual people, and we unfortunately fail to recognize systems. But when we're talking about things like conversion practices, when we're talking about the everything, I think it's important to recognize and to actually try to maintain and use that framing of the fact that policies are not just policies, they're not just words on a page. Procedures are more than just, a list of do A, then B, C, then D. They have, all of these things have real world impacts. And I think sometimes it's easy to not draw that connection about the fact that these words, these things that people in buildings that, if we're lucky as SARA folk, maybe we get to enter once every couple of months, if that, get to talk to, that those words have such a real and genuine impact, because they are not just words, they create a society, they create a culture, which enables certain behaviours, which enables certain attitudes. We of course, well, it wasn't members of the trans community, saw it very recently with an assault towards a gay couple in the city only a few days ago. There's normalization that happens through inaction, and that happens through the policies, through the procedures, through the systemic factors. So I know that sometimes, I think as well, some people it can be difficult to recognize what systemic advocacy is and what it means, but to me it's, I think in fact, recognizing that these policies are a form of violence, they are a form of injustice, they are denial and betrayal of our rights. And that is why, that's why systemic advocacy is so important, I suppose, and it's something that I think is important that we, not only we try to remember, but more importantly that we remind our MPs, we remind the people who do make those decisions, have that policy and have that power.